Could have got it from me a long time ago.
David, why are you in such a good mood?
Well, because the GOAT is coming home. And no, I'm not talking about that Sacagawea Tom Brady. If you want to know how we truly feel, revert back to the somebody's
Something
not
or other.
sheepish about the GOAT episode where somebody got a little lit before the Super Bowl.
Even though I would venture to say most of our audience doesn't. Well, I don't know. I figured maybe Ronaldo.
You're being
maybe Ronaldo transcends soccer. Everybody knows who.
I would certainly hope so. He's the biggest. He's the highest endorsed athlete in the world right now.
Okay.
Not to mention an award-winning smile and dynamite areolas.
Anyway, David's PP is tickled.
Oh,
if you didn't
only
hear,
slightly.
Today, on the day that we're recording this episode, he found out that Cristiano Ronaldo,
in the year of our Lord 2021, August 27th.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. That Cristiano Ronaldo is re-signing with his former club, Manchester United.
My favorite club. And Dane, why should your PP be tickled as well, seeing as you only follow the man and try to emulate him in everything that
listen, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to root for him no matter where he goes. I don't even like Juventus, and I rooted for them to be successful while he was there. But although my team is Real Madrid, if I were to
why would you
pick a favorite team in the Premier League, it would be Manchester United.
Why would you root for Real Madrid?
Well, I mean, because when I started following club soccer in Europe, I didn't know, one team from a hole in the ground.
He didn't
so I
know
picked the
shit
team that
from
Ronaldo
Shinola.
played for. I rooted for the team that Ronaldo played for.
Because you seem like a good dude. And you know what? And again, we're going to go off on a tangent. It has nothing to do with normal politics in the United States, but it's, God damn it, it means something
Trying
to
to keep it light on episode 58.
I'm trying to keep it light. But anyway, so it started off, if you didn't follow the story, which I'm assuming most of America did not. Maybe because we're the 141st political podcast in Australia.
Hey!
Maybe you guys are following it a little bit.
Yeah, baby.
But
that's how we roll.
But apparently.
That's
anyway,
confirmed, by the way. He's not pulling that number out of his ass.
We got emailed. It's in text.
By the way,
therefore,
I think that we're 141st is Grandpa looking down on us. So
yeah. Well,
we're gonna jump from here to 41st,
and then we're gonna go to Plymouth Rock and do that too. So anyway, what happened is that there was
I'm glad you brought that up. I totally forgot about that.
What?
The 141st political podcast in Australia.
Well, you credit holla.
Bro,
you gotta shout out. You gotta shout it out.
We have to start putting this on marketing material.
141st
podcast.
The fighting 141st
in Australia, no less.
In Australia. So where the upside down is, that's where we're good.
Actually, we're like the absolute worst of the worst COVID hysteria is going on. Like everybody's
we like these guys
in total lockdown. They're like, we like these guys.
What, you like them the best? No, like 141st. We like them 141st out of all the other ones. So anyway, so at the beginning of the week, my dick shriveled a little bit because he was
always with this guy.
Of course, it's all about phallic symbols and my own fallacies.
Misogyny.
Correct. Goddamn the patriarchy. So our mutually favorite player in current world's football, as they call it, and in the US they call it soccer, is Cristiano Ronaldo. So, and he started off most of his prolificacy at my club, Manchester United. He came from Sporting Lisbon. Long story. So basically, we're gonna fast track it. So he became a star at Manchester United. Went on to Real Madrid, did a bunch of stuff there. He's arguably the GOAT. And then I've always wanted him back. And then he was in talks with not necessarily my team's arch rival, but the across city rival. So that was like, dude, we thought you loved the club that gave you that made you what you are, why'd you kick us in the nuts like this? So I woke up today like, oh God, he's gonna go to City. Let me just COVID-19. The last couple of years, nothing's gone right. Of course, Ronaldo's gonna go to the dark side.
If you need an image of David, just picture this. For the past 12 years, I believe Ronaldo left to Real in 2009, right?
Something like that.
Right. So for the past 12 years, David has been pining like that. What's that movie where the guy stands outside the girl's window with the boombox over his head?
No. That's High Fidelity.
It's like an 80s
John
movie.
Cusack.
John Cusack.
I could tell you the actor's name, but I couldn't tell you. Of course, he's Tiffany, you bitch. Yeah, it's High Fidelity. Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. That's been David for the last 12 years.
Well,
he's been pining for Ronaldo to come
when
back
everyone's like, shithead over here was always like, yeah, Ronaldo's on my team. Ronaldo's on my... It's like he was forged in the fires of Manchester United. So you're freaking welcome. You're freaking welcome that he's doing all that he's doing for you. Anyway,
well, here's the takeaway. All right.
Basically,
all of the listeners are very happy that you're happy.
Yes.
Okay, because I think that they get maybe the wrong idea from this podcast, that maybe you're just
a sad sack, a cynicist.
Yeah, just a sad person.
Just sees the dark and the light.
I'm the one that's light and airy and always full of fun and joy.
Clearly.
And you're
the color, I'm the black and white. Yeah. Right, exactly. So
they're happy,
basically,
you're happy.
I want to explain this to our American listeners. So this would be like if Troy Aikman decided that before the last Super Bowl that he won for you guys, the Cowboys, that being, he's like, you know what? I'm going to try something different. I'm going to go over to the Eagles and I'm going to try to make it work there. And you guys are like, no, how could you? Ah! And then all of a sudden you woke up on Friday. That was Monday through Thursday. And then you woke up on Friday. He's like, I'm just kidding. I'm coming back. We're going to win it again. And the other guys are like, you son of a bitch. So anyway, that's basically how I felt today. That's why David's in such a jovial mood and ready to talk about taxes. One of the most fun things you could possibly talk about.
Well, hey, listen, it could be worse. It could be COVID.
Could be.
So we're not doing that.
I don't feel like that dead horse has come back to life yet.
Listen,
so we don't need to punch it in the head.
If the assholes in DC wouldn't quit Dr. Frankenstein and the thing back to life, we wouldn't have to be talking about it. But we're not going to talk about it this week. But what we are going to talk about is, as David said, taxes. And we're going to do it as soon as we launch in. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 58.
Which good thing we rehearsed that before we went live.
I know, right? Which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/58. You can also find it on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You'll find our entire catalog. But first one on the list will obviously be the most recent, episode 58. Also, link up with us on other social medias. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And as of today, I think, we have our private Facebook page finally set up. And for only $5 a month, if you would like to support the show, that is the perk that you will get. So not only will you get to talk to David and I in person directly, give us show ideas, tell us why we're dumb, tell us why we're awesome and beautiful, which maybe you don't know that yet because we haven't done video on YouTube yet, which is forthcoming soon. But you will get to be in a sane space, so to speak, of other people that haven't completely lost their minds, because this is an invite-only Facebook group. You can't search it. You can't find it. If you become a supporting listener at only $5 a month, you will get invited to the group and we can share articles and talk and just generally not be lunatics like the rest of the world.
You know what was nice about this particular friend request that I received from somebody else to enter my own podcasts group was that it was finally from somebody that didn't have a Russian sounding name. that wanted to sell me
You're like, why doesn't anybody in America like me?
Swipe up pictures and so on and so forth. It's like, Facebook, you guys realize that I'm not some degenerate that it's just looking for love in all the wrong places, right?
They actually don't know that.
They don't know that yet, which is actually good. It's good they don't know me that well.
Yeah.
Because granted, I am looking for love in all the wrong places, but it's just not on Facebook. That's one of the wrong places that I'm not looking for it on.
That's good. You like to keep your wrong places in the real world.
You know, the usual, the street corners, the back alleys, that kind of good stuff.
Exactly.
You know I like to keep it wholesome. Wholesome.
It's hard to replace the classics.
I mean, there's nothing like the thrill of being like, all right, let's get this done before I get mugged, before, some guy wakes up in a dark alley and starts asking me for change before I can exchange bodily fluids.
Jesus.
Couldn't stop. It was up to you. You could have stopped this train.
That joke was just going to keep going until it reached its logical conclusion.
Kind of like I did before. Yep, you got it.
Well done. Proud of you. All right. So the impetus for today's episode was actually past Dane.
You're driving me right into it.
Blessing future Dane. Well, I guess it's present Dane now. With a podcast topic, because David and I, we've been trying really hard, and you've heard this on the last couple episodes. We've been trying really hard to say, listen, we don't want this to become a COVID exclusive podcast. Listen, on the one hand, it's not our fault the lunatics keep trying to up the ante for who can be more stupid or tyrannical. So there is something to comment on COVID-wise every week, and of course, there is something to comment on regarding FDA approval.
It's like it's the only thing that's happening right now. It's like all they want to talk about, despite the fact that we've just created a clusterfuck over in the Middle East. But
yes, and to be fair to us, and to be fair to content creators that keep talking about COVID, I mean, this is probably the most momentous event of all of our lives.
So far,
it rivals, and I would posit that it defeats 9/11 in terms of being the biggest thing because of what the policies that have come out of it. So forgive us a little bit, but this week we're going to try to keep the COVID break rolling.
Wait until the rapture and then the subsequent Armageddon that follows. They are going to light that shit up. They're going to say, like, it was the Republicans' fault. And then the Republicans are going to be like, it was Joe Biden. He pulled out too quick.
Oh, yeah. Those events are tailor-made for
Meanwhile, it has nothing to do with either of them. It's just whether or not you're a good person or bad.
Yeah. So, with that being said, you might be wondering, what the hell did past Dane have to do with any of this? So, if you're on Facebook, which we assume that our audience being relatively young, most of you are.
Actually, they'd probably have to be older to be on Facebook nowadays.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. All the kids
are on the talk tick.
Are on the talks and the grams. So, past Dane rewarded present Dane by reminding him of a post that he posted on this very day, August 27th, 2019. So just not only 2 years ago. And Dane was just kind of frustrated that day thinking about, well, the United States government is $22 trillion in debt, which then leads to the follow-up question for a large portion of the electorate that says, you know what? I don't think the federal government has enough control over our lives. This entity that managed to run up a $22,000 debt tab, despite the fact that it is the only entity in all of society which can literally legally steal from the rest of us, it still runs that big of a debt tab.
Without a receipt or without a thank you. It just takes it from you.
Yeah.
And if you don't give it what it wants, it comes and gets you and throws you in the gulag.
And yet some people, we won't name names, but you know who they are. You hear their arguments all the time. Some people will say that this entity doesn't have enough resources or control over all of our lives. And so therefore we should tax everybody more, and we should give this entity more control over the economy and more resources, and, hashtag tax the rich and all that kind of stuff. So 2 years ago, 2 year younger Dane was remarking at how stupid that sounds.
Flippant.
Right? Does that not sound stupid? David, if you were granted some magical privilege.
Like if I got a wand.
Yeah.
And I could say, Expelliarmus.
If you were granted...
Wingardium Leviosa.
If you were granted a privilege and the government said, David, listen, go around, stick guns in people's faces, steal from as many people as you want, don't matter, you're good to go, we ain't gonna arrest you, and you still go massively into debt, you think anybody would say, you know what, I think David needs just a little bit more money. I think we need to let him steal a little bit more aggressively.
Sounds like the mafia.
That'll fix it.
It sounds like the mafia. It sounds like Marinara needs to be involved in some estruzzi with a little al dente. Needs to be involved.
You're attacking Italians a lot lately. You got some bones.
Well,
to pick?
There's
or is
apparently
it just Cuomo?
An Italian that was attacking a lot of people. not too long ago.
He's not a rapist.
When you hear
he's not
family,
perverted. He's just Italian.
When you hear your family, all right. So I'm gonna finger your butthole. I'm gonna feel your goods. All right. I'm gonna smush your face. How's your mom, paisan? All right. Anywho, moving on.
So yes, David. To my hypothetical.
To your hypothetical.
If you were granted
how big is my gun? Like, is it bigger than every other dude's gun, or is it
better yet? How about we say nobody in society is allowed to have one except for you, and if you used it to steal from people, you're legally exempt. It's illegal for you. We're not going to call it theft. We're going to call it taxation.
I would use all that power for good. I would say, you know what? Can you afford it this week with my big fat gun in your mouth? You can't. Okay, cool. I'm not going to extort my power. I'm definitely not going to do that.
Okay, but whether you would use it for good or not, if you went into debt,
like Robin Hood.
Despite having that privilege, what should we think about your ability to manage money?
Listen, Mr. Trotsky, I need that money right now. You don't understand. Like, the heavies are coming down on me hard, and I need to be able to get these couple of shekels to them. You need to be able to give it to me. You can't. Well, that's problematic. So here's your son. I'm going to hold my gun into his mouth, and you tell me whether or not you can afford to cough up the shekels that I need.
Get a second mortgage on the house to pay me up.
Baby. Oh, now all of a sudden you're talking, Mrs. Trotsky or Shevsky or whatever the hell I said your name was in the first place.
Last name has changed multiple times.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Your son's on the block. Can you afford it? See, now it's when you get squeezed. It becomes a little harder to be so altruistic.
Okay, but I feel like in true government fashion, you're fighting or refusing to answer the hypothetical.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm drawing a very direct line. Like, I don't know how much harder your balls need to get squeezed from $22 trillion to $23 trillion. It's like a made up number. Like,
it's monopoly money.
At that point, it's like, I'll get you next week. Tuesday sound good? All right, sounds great. Anyway.
Hey, JP, Jerome Powell, fire up the printers.
Hey, we're going to keep doing the same fucking thing that we've been doing, right? Right. And then they aren't going to ever call our tab. That's cool. Like, but the tab, my whole point about this analogy that you think I'm drawing out, but that's what these guys are doing too. Is like, there's no, when's our deadline? When did they shut off America's water? When did they shut off America's power? When did they come to say, hey, you need to get out because you can't pay your rent? We're going to give it to the next America group.
And I will answer your question by saying that's a big unknowable.
Right.
None of us. I mean, because I think where this road ultimately leads is hyperinflation.
Of course.
You know, everybody says, oh, well, who's going to collect?
That has, again, it has nothing to do with what we always talk about on this podcast. Accountability. It has nothing to do with what we always talk about on this podcast. It's about personal and country and existential accountability. And it has nothing to do with it.
And here's the thing, dear listener, is whether you think it's a good idea to hold people accountable for their actions. I mean, I think you probably gathered how David and I feel about it is people should be held accountable for their actions, because if they're not, then what incentive do they have to behave better the next time than they did the last time? But if you don't agree with that, that's fine. I would just ask you the question, what entity in society is the only entity, the only one who doesn't have to be accountable for their actions and just gets away with it scot-free? Even if you think the most evil mega corporation ever, if you think Amazon is just like some scourge to humanity, right? Because it allows Jeff Bezos to waste money riding up in rockets. If you think that that's the worst thing in the world, at the end of the day, if Amazon starts scamming people, if you put your order in on Amazon and they just say, hey, thanks for the money, chump, we ain't sending you whatever you ordered. not only
maybe next in the 2 years, keep your eyes open. Not
only would Amazon not be in business very long because people would be like, hey, this is a fraudulent business, I'm not going to spend my money there anymore, but they would get taken to court and they would get the living shit sued out of them, and a few lawsuits going against them, cutting into their bottom line, would make them shape up. But government has no incentive like that. They can continue to waste money, pass the buck, blame everybody else, and yet the only argument you ever hear from at least half of the electorate, if not more, is, yeah, I think this entity should have more money and more control over the economy and resources, and I think that we're just a little bit closer to utopia if we allow that to happen.
But Dane, I can hear, number one, they're going to say, well, we need to give the inept, what you're arguing is saying that, like, we need to give the inept entity more money because the only reason that it's failed so far is because it hasn't had enough
money. Doesn't have enough, right.
Right, exactly. So it's a fair point. It's a fair point. But I can hear our naysayers going, David, what about Purdue Pharma that just elicited an opioid crisis pandemic upon our population? And then when they were going to face their just rewards after lying and falsifying scientific studies to throw that said that this particular opioid, despite its cousin being fucking heroin, it's not addictive, and that you can totally take this pill and not get addicted to it, and it totally won't kill you at all. And then, like, over, what was it, 6 or 60? There was a 6 in there somewhere. A lot million people died from
a lot million. That's a technical number.
That's the legitimate.
You gotta be real sciencey
that's
to
the
know.
Hard-hitting facts that we offer
know
at
what
this
a lot
podcast.
million is.
Over here at Weapons of Meme Destruction, a lot million people died. Not to poo-poo those a million people, because by God. But again, this particular pharmacy, it literally got people hooked on a pill form of heroin, and said it wasn't that big a deal. And then when they were going to be brought to their just rewards, they claimed bankruptcy, dissolved the company, and then the people that ran it made off with a bunch of money, and then just kind of nothing ever happened. So, like, again, to track back to the accountability thing, like, when the heads start rolling from these people that do these horrible things like taxing us, stealing our money, and then not ever giving us the fruitful rewards that our tax dollars should pay, or, starting a war saying we're going to elicit justice upon these people, and then we're going to free this, and we're going to create a sovereign nation, we're going to rebuild a nation, and then they just get a bunch of people killed, and then all the people that want to go to war again the next time, they're more than willing to go to war again the next time because nobody's heads rolled that sent us to war in the first place. Like, again, the accountability thing keeps. I keep hitting my head against this wall. I keep hitting it. I can't break through it. Dane, help me.
So now I know what you're asking. You're thinking, well, okay, you've explained to us what past Dane, because you were reminded of this Facebook post from 2
Simple
years ago.
Little naive Dane.
But what's that have to do with present Dane? And we're going to tell you that right after a word from our
sponsors. Hey Dane, as we clatter our way through this episode, this sounds like a good time for a advertisement break.
If we had one?
Maybe if we did.
Well, you're in luck, because we do.
Oh, I was going out on a limb there.
The Solutionary Summit 2021 will be held in our backyard, Miami, Florida, September 3rd through the 5th. What is the Solutionary Summit, you ask? It's a 3-day event that will present a host of independent thinkers from all backgrounds. They will have panels on economics, cultural discussions, and political strategy from a powerful lineup of speakers. The panels will also include Q&A sessions discussing freedom, attacks on liberty, race relations, effective community outreach, and other current topics.
Dane, this sounds like a momentous occasion. How would I acquire tickets to it?
Oh, it is very momentous, but you better act fast because there's only 250 seats available and they will sell out quickly. So reach out to us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, anywhere you find weapons of meme destruction. Drop us a DM, drop us a comment, ask how to get tickets to the Solutionary Summit 2021, and we will hook you up. Because at the end of the day, if you want to see the world, and in particular your community, freer in your lifetime, then the Solutionary Summit 2021 in Miami, Florida, September 3rd through 5th is the place to be. You'll get to meet your gracious co-hosts here as well as the panel of speakers.
How could you refuse?
So, here's how it affects future Dane, or sorry, not future Dane.
Present Dane.
Future Dane in the sense in relative to past Dane, but it's actually present Dane. So that got me thinking. Well, 2 years ago on this date exactly, because I'm sure that when I posted that, I looked at the national debt clock, which by the way, we'll put in the show notes page at wmdpodcast.com/58. So you'll get to see the national debt clock, which if you don't know, this is just a simple web address that has the numbers running in real time based on federal spending, how much the debt is running up. And so I said, well, that was 2 years ago. I wonder what it is today. So I popped over there real quick and I found that as of 10 o'clock this morning, which it's 12 hours after that almost that we're recording this episode, as of 10 o'clock this morning, the national debt was about $28 trillion. So now listen, I'm going to say this right out front. I'm a lawyer, so I'm bad at math. Okay, so if these numbers sound off to you, feel free to run them yourself, and comment on any of our social medias and tell us why we're wrong.
And we know that having a credit card is very hard. Some of you are late on your payments already, but I can't imagine that many of you are $28 trillion in debt.
Yeah,
so you would have to have a pretty hot eye for Gucci bags and Prada and Dolce & Gabbana and so on and so forth.
So
Cartier.
So this is the back of the napkin math that I did this morning. So if we're $28 trillion in debt, that means 2 years ago to the day from today.
That's like a whole $6 trillion, Dave.
Yeah, quick maths. The United States government has racked up another $6 trillion in debt. But I didn't stop there. I said, but surely the government took in money over those 2 years, so that doesn't mean they only spent $6 trillion in the last 2 years. So how much do they take in? So, did some Googles and found out that over the course of those 2 years, the federal government took in roughly $7.5 trillion. I think it was like 7.56, but we'll just round down. We're being nice to the government. So they actually took in from taxes $7.5 trillion. So add the $6 trillion of debt to that. That means that in the last 2 years, August 27th to August 27th, the federal government has spent $13.5 trillion. So what does that factor out to per day? Well, 13.5 trillion divided by 720, which I think is 365 times 2, is about $18.5 billion a day.
You know what it sounds like?
A day.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like our it sounds like our government.
Take two.
Take two, roll it back. Scene. It sounds like our government has a drug problem.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you can spend how much did you say? $1.8 billion?
No, $18.5 billion a day.
Oh, wow.
That's not like they take off holidays and they don't spend on Saturday and Sunday. That means over the course of 365 days times 2 years.
So they're literally saying, I can stop this whenever I want to. I just don't want to right now.
Exactly.
Okay, I can do it. Get away!
$18.5 trillion a day. And if you'll recall back to episode 57, which we just talked about last week, I think as of the time we recorded that episode, the estimates of the amount of hardware left behind in Afghanistan was about $80 billion. That's what, 4 days worth of federal spending? When you heard that on episode 57, you're thinking, $80 billion, that's a lot of money. And we're sitting here agreeing with you.
But Dave, that would only get you through like 2 years. You could retire for like 2 years. Then
if you started spending that on Monday, you wouldn't even get to the weekend.
What the hell? Like, you'd have to buy like 100 yachts every day for the entire year. Just to
100 yachts. I don't even know.
Just to get to $18 billion.
David.
So like you'd have to buy you'd have to buy like a whole fleet of F-22s for a year to even come close to encompassing outrunning that expenditure.
David, I don't even know of
how
a yacht
are we
that
all
costs...
not using flying cars right now with what they're spending?
It's like that meme with like the super futuristic society that says, what society would be if, they let your ego have your waffle or whatever. It's like, it's always something stupid.
Sure.
But it's like, yeah, that would be the society we would have if government wasn't extracting that amount of resources out of the private.
What are they doing?
On a daily basis.
How, I want an accounting. I want an itemized bill on what they're spending per day.
18.5 billion.
18.5 billion.
A day.
Imagine you had a tenth of that. 1.8 billion a day. What could you do with 1.8 billion a day? I don't know. Let's ask Jeffrey Bezos. Could you shoot yourself into space with a penis-shaped rocket? Oh, yeah. You can do that on Wednesday and again on Thursday. And if you felt frisky, maybe Saturday.
Yeah, I think his total, like, for his little space adventure, I think it was like $5 billion. So, yeah, he would basically
God. He'd do it three times a week and not even break into it.
Forget a week. 18 billion, 5, 10, 15, 3. So what? If he woke up at a normal person's wake up time at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Well, let's not push him. A soft 8:30. Let's go soft 8:30.
He would have enough money by noon to take a rocket ship and then another rocket ship by 3 p.m.
You want to go up? Just jerk off in zero gravity and then come back down and try to avoid the droplets.
And I'm glad.
Let's play a fun game that I like to play every now and again, every Wednesday.
I'm glad you brought up Bezos in particular, because if you remember a few weeks ago when he did his trip, right, the memes, and especially from the lefty pages, were especially vitriolic. But the memes were all like, oh, this is why our society is so screwed up, because rich guys are spending their money by going to the outer space and stuff. This is so bad because the rich aren't paying their fair share. Well, let's just backtrack just for a second to those numbers. So $18.5 billion a day. I looked up Bezos's net worth, and it's about $190 billion. So let's just round that $18.5 billion off to a day. Let's say hypothetically the government spends another $500 million that wasn't accounted for. In 10 days, if you confiscated 100% of Jeff Bezos's wealth, if you took him from the world's, well, I guess he's second richest now because some French dude passed him, but for all intents and purposes, let's say number one. If you took the richest man in the world and turned him into a guy living under a bridge tomorrow, took every dime he has, you would fund the federal government. And keep in mind, this is only the federal government. This isn't counting state governments, county, local. This is just federal government spending. You would fund the federal government for a grand total of 10 days. So if in light of all of this, you still fall back on tax the rich or they're not paying for their fair share or whatever. At this point, I have nothing to say other than you need to be committed to a fucking insane asylum. Because if the solution to all of the world's problems is to just confiscate all the money from the rich and then everybody, it'll be kumbaya and everything will be fantastic, you're insane. You are absolutely insane. Stupid or disingenuous. I don't know which one. Well, but clearly Washington does not have a taxing problem. It has a spending problem. And by the way, we've talked about this on past episodes too in terms of the taxing versus spending. Every single year, I think since, what did we say? It was something like 2007. So all the way through Obama's presidency, all the way through Trump's, currently through Biden's, every single year, federal income from taxes has gone up. So this idea, like you always hear AOC and Bernie's of the world say, oh, the tax breaks for the rich under Trump was a handout to the rich. Well, I mean, I call bullshit on that because the federal government took more money in every year under Trump than they did under Obama, and then now under Biden every year than they did over Trump.
Well,
so there's clearly not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem.
It seems to be that there's one key issue that we hearken on all the time that never gets resolved is accountability. Like, it shouldn't be that hard for the American people to demand a receipt. To demand, okay, if you're spending $18 billion a day, let's round it, $19 billion a day, let's see it. Where is all that money going?
Yeah.
If you want us to keep paying this, and we are the people that give you the power, we want a receipt right now. Show us it. Where is all this money going? Mm-hmm. And then we'll decide whether or not we need to be spending that. And we'll decide with our vote. Like, again, American people and people in general think that they're, I don't know, maybe 5 times smarter than they really are. But you can take the most educated person right now, and they'll probably tell you that the reason why COVID is spreading, not bringing COVID into this is not a COVID episode, but they'll blame a Republican, a Republican for the reason that the COVID variant, Delta variant is spreading. They're a very educated person, but they're following the shimmy lure, the silvery, glittery lure, the distractor, and they're biting the hook and they're getting reeled in. Like, that's not what's supposed to happen. This is not what the problem with the country is right now. The problem with the country is the people telling you that the problem with the country is your next door neighbor. That's what the real problem is. The real problem with the country starts on Capitol Hill. That's what we've always been arguing. We are Americans. We are each other's brethren. We are a country. And the people that are tearing us apart are the same people that we're following, and they're telling us to tear ourselves apart, and we're following them blindly.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a Biden sign in your front yard and your neighbor has a Trump sign in your front yard, or in their front yard, I'll guarantee you that if you sit down with that person and have a conversation,
maybe put a beer in between you,
you will have more in common with that person than you will with even your own representative. But set that aside. Let's say, you're the Biden supporter, than you do with Nancy Pelosi or AOC or whatever the case may be. Guaranteed you will have more in common with your neighbor than the person who's ruling you in D.C. that's telling you to hate your neighbor.
In fact.
And that's where all of this starts, to David's point about the accountability. Because it's the classic divide and conquer strategy. We know this is what they're doing. Everybody knows that's what they're doing.
Or you should.
And if they can say, hey, bad thing X has gone on in the world. Hate your neighbor. Don't hate us. Forget the fact that we're the ones responsible for it. Just be mad at your neighbor. If you continue to buy into that, how quickly do you think any solutions to the actual problems are going to be arrived at? And I posit not very.
And just in case you're like, David, COVID is nothing to be joked with. Like, almost 33,000 people have died this year because of COVID. Don't joke about that. Well, I hate to break it to you, but 656,000 people die every year of heart disease. And that's directly corollary for what the people that keep telling you that you need to go out and get the vaccine because it'll keep you safe. they allow you to shove things down your gullet that will give you a heart attack.
They're now getting, we joked about this previously, about Krispy Kreme giving donuts out for vaccine status. Well, now Krispy Kreme has doubled their offer to 2 donuts.
Holy shit. So we'll get you closer to death with a vaccine. How about that?
So if you show you got the vaccine, we're going to double guarantee you get heart disease.
Holy crap. Well, not all in one offer. You're going to have to come back on a separate day to get that second donut.
So,
God bless America. Again, that's you're the fish biting the lure that you thought you were too smart to bite. Like, don't fall for that shit. Like, we're not saying to get the vaccine. We're not saying not to get the vaccine. What we're saying is hold the people accountable. Okay, go get the vaccine. And right after that, go and find out where this COVID crisis came from. Start researching the add-a-function or gain-a-function research that was banned in this country.
Which you weren't allowed to talk about a year ago, by the way. You're
called racist. They just labeled you as a racist for even saying that it came from China. For Christ's sake.
But now you're allowed to talk about it.
Oh, well,
so
thank
we're good,
Christ
David.
for that.
This episode won't get canceled.
And then to track it back onto something that's actually happening now, heaven forbid we hold the people accountable that got us into the Afghanistan-Iraq war, because it's not like it's going to ever happen again. Hashtag Vietnam, hashtag North Korea, hashtag any of the other wars that we've ever fought for no reason other than an idealism. To fight terrorism, which is, what is terrorism? Define terrorism.
So, and I wish I would have connected this dot earlier in the episode, but if you've made it to the end here, you're gonna think, we've done our purpose as destroying memes and replacing them with better ones, regardless. Here's what I want you to take away in terms of a meme which allows the people in power to get away with this, that needs to be destroyed and replaced, is this idea that, well, we have a democracy. So everything the government does is the will of the people. If you don't like it, vote them out. These kind of things, this kind of like social contract theory kind of bullshit. And what I would ask you is, if I were to have a son or daughter today, born today, at $28 trillion, if you divide that up amongst every living American, and again, this is definitely off the cuff, man.
And that's if we stop spending right now.
Yeah. If we don't go into debt another penny from this second forward, from the second my fictional son or daughter is born, I believe the number is somewhere between like $70,000 and $80,000 of debt per U.S. citizen. Now, presumably that my fictional son or daughter is going to grow up and become an adult and pay taxes and, live in the system that is, propped up by the American government. And they never got a say in that massive amount of debt that hangs over their head. So this idea that, and don't get it wrong, that is exactly what this debt is. This debt is committing future generations that are not even yet born to debt slavery. There is no way to sugarcoat that. That is exactly what it is. So this idea that it's acceptable that what the people in DC are doing, because we have a quote unquote nominal ability to vote as if your vote mattered at all anyway, is completely absurd, because you are committing future generations upon future generations to financial debt slavery for something they had no say in. They weren't even here when the decisions were made. And so that meme in and of itself, that it's acceptable because we have this ridiculous, useless ability to vote, that therefore it's acceptable. No, destroy that meme in your own mind and in every person you come across, and replace it with the meme that we're trying to put forward is, it doesn't matter whether you're sitting in a fancy office in DC or whether you're trying to balance your own budget in your own home. Personal accountability is key. Just like you and I have to pay all of our bills that we rack up, the federal government needs to be responsible, the decision makers in that government need to be responsible for the decisions they make that put us all under the yoke of its financial treason. And if that meme replaces the other meme, maybe we can get this crazy train back on the tracks.
And again, like we're saying, don't follow the shiny lure. Don't follow what they're telling you about whatever your neighbor views differently of the world. Hold the people accountable that need to be held accountable. That's it. Like, he didn't vote. He didn't come up with the bill. He didn't do anything other than vote for a person that he viewed the world kind of similarly to, or at least that's what the commercials said. Like, hold the people accountable. Otherwise, if you keep following that lure, we're going to go further down this rabbit hole.
We're going to get having this conversation in 10 years.
Vietnam was bad. Vietnam lasted 10 years, and everyone hated it. This war lasted 20. Everyone hated it. What happens next? If we don't hold the people accountable for this war that need to be held accountable, or if we don't have the lack of trust in our leadership that we should have had back in 2001, this will happen again, and it will be worse the next time. It will always get worse until you start holding the people accountable. Like we were saying in the last episode, the people that always send the people into war and cause these atrocities and cause these horrific things to happen never suffer the ill fate. They only ever suffer the profits. Which is why they keep doing it, and why they keep doing it worse and worse, because they get paid more and more to do it.
Well, I mean, on that point, before we close, I was just talking to the famous grandma we keep referring to, which she will be the first time.
Zero.
The first time that we interview somebody on this podcast, it will be grandma. But I was having a conversation with her recently, and, she brought up the point that, when Vietnam was over, the soldiers were coming home and the American citizens were spitting on the soldiers. Now, keep in mind, the soldiers, especially in that conflict, this isn't true for today, but most of them were drafted.
Right.
So they were in that conflict, not even of their own free will. And the American people were spitting on them coming home, not the politicians that sent them there in the first place. And that's exactly what we're talking about with the accountability, is that the people that are actually pulling the strings,
the cart before the horse,
they are the ones who are not getting any ire directed at them, because they are very, very successfully deploying the divide and conquer strategy, and everybody on both sides. And I say both sides as if like the political spectrum is, a dichotomy. It's not. I understand there's nuance. But what I'm saying is, like, by and large, the people on both sides of the political spectrum are turning their ire on each other instead of on the person who is, stirring the pot and saying, hey, fight each other, but not me.
Stop eating McDonald's. Stop getting fast food news. Stop listening to CNN. Stop listening to Fox News. Stop listening to all these pundits.
Listen to us and give us money. So
exactly. Because
make this a going concern. And
you'll
we're
be
greedy
smart if you listen to us. But no, just stop being so banal. We get it. You're busy. That's great. If you're busy, don't even bother turning on CNN. Don't even bother turning on Fox News. Don't bother turning on MSNBC. Because if you can't discern and critically think about any of the information that's given to you on any of those, you're not going to make a
You're going to wind up regurgitating whatever
exactly,
they tell you.
And
they're going to give
you're going to start blaming again. You're going to start spitting on the faces of the people that were fighting a war that they didn't want to be there in the first place, and the same people that sent them there to fight their war for them will keep getting money. We'll keep doing this again, and we'll if you do not learn from the past, you are condemned to repeat it. Period. Accountability, personal, political, educational. Macro.
That is. So, what is your action item for this week? Whether you're a Biden supporter, a Trump supporter, or whether you're a libertarian like us, go find somebody that you otherwise, by seeing the sticker on their car or the hat on their head, that you would otherwise be like, that idiot. Da, 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 da. And go just go talk to that person. Not even about politics. Just talk to him. How's their kids? What do they do for a living? They want to have a beer, something like that. That's your action item for the week. If more people just simply talked to somebody else, they will find that they have much more in common with them than any politician in DC, and that is what the people in DC actually fear, is the people setting aside the divide and conquer strategy and saying, well, I do see eye to eye more with you than someone in DC, and therefore we're going to resist them together. That is the first step to a better world.
That's America. That's what we were founded on.
So, with that being said, you can find this episode at wmdpodcast.com/58. You can also find it on YouTube. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can also find us on the various social media apps, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And if you would like to join that private Facebook group, which again is invite only, and you will get that invite once you become a supporting listener of the show, just go to the website and go to the Support Our Work tab, and you'll see the different tiers. But for the lowest tier, the cheapest tier, at $5 a month, you will get access to that private Facebook page where we're going to call it, we're not the first ones to use this, but we're going to call it our sane space, where you can come and chat and hang out and talk with people who haven't completely lost their minds and just want to see a freer world tomorrow than they have today.
Or come in there and just say some inflammatory shit.
See what happens.
Let's try to figure it out.
Let's
try to figure it out. Right, exactly. Let's try to figure our way out of this hole. Otherwise, thank you for listening so much. We appreciate all of you that listen to these episodes through and throughout, or even segmentally, or through it. If you're listening, we thank you so much. Keep listening, keep spreading the podcast, and help us get a little more sane each and every week, please.
Absolutely. And we will see you next Monday for episode 59. Over and out.
Be safe.